I'm Luyu. Nice to meet you. Good to see you.
Mine is to be the bodybuilding champion and to be a power lifter and a weightlifter and to do great things, to get trophies and medals. She says, son, you're very sick in the head.
What do you consider to be your biggest personal failure?
I think that my marriage, I think the only thing that really bothers me is death. The word retirement, that means you're giving up something, you're stopping something. I mean, I don't know what the point of it is. Why would you give up something that you love doing?
T-800, Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I'll be back.
You know, I didn't have the foggiest idea, nor did he, that this would become the most historic movie line, period. In life, you have to set specific goals. I want to go and be a leading man. I walked around on the street with little posing trunks. It was winter, it was snowing already, and everyone was looking. I was more interested in eventually newspapers and television and magazine reporters are going to turn up.
What were you passionate about when you were a young kid?
I was passionate about sports, and my father always hated it because my father wanted me to be a police officer like he was. My father was a police officer. My mother wanted me to stay home, to marry a girl by the name of Heidi, and to have 5 kids and to be like the Van Trapp family in The Sound of Music or something like that.
I love that idea.
Yeah,
actually.
no, but I mean, my mother loved that, but it was not my vision. I said to my mother, I said, that's your vision, which I appreciate. I said, but mine is what you consider crazy. I said, mine is to be in America. Mine is to be in Hollywood. Mine is to be the bodybuilding champion and to be a power lifter and a weightlifter and to do great things, to get trophies and medals and to be hailed out there as being the greatest. I said, that's what I see myself. And she says, son, you're very sick in the head. So that's what they thought.
How did you know you were going to make it in Hollywood?
I didn't know. I just felt that if I can see it, I believe it, and I will achieve it. That's how I felt. But it's with everything like that. I mean, it's like when I was running for governor, I mean, all of a sudden we had a recall election in California. I was never thinking about getting into politics. And then all of a sudden we had this recall election, and then I said to myself, you know something I could do better for California than all the stupid politicians. And all of a sudden I kind of woke up and I said, I should run for governor. A few days later I announced on The Tonight Show that I'm going to run for governor, and everyone thought, this is crazy. And, 2 months later, I was governor of California. So it's really insane.
But things like that don't happen overnight. I mean, the thought of going into politics don't happen overnight. I think it comes just gradually. I think it has something to do with what President Nixon talked to you about, or something to do with Mr. Clint Eastwood being the mayor of Carmel or something like that, right?
Well, yes, many people have said to me, you should be in politics, because you're attractive, you're smart, you know business, you know how to run things, you show leadership, you can take charge of things in order, you're a strong personality, you're good in penetrating and reaching out to the people and all this. And so that's what President Nixon said to me also. He says, you should run for politics, you should run for governor, I endorse you.
What made him say things like that?
We sat together and we talked about politics, and I told him how he inspired me becoming a Republican when he ran for president in 1968. And I just came to America. I barely spoke English. A friend of mine was translating everything he was saying, and then everything sounded really great, so that's how I became conservative, a Republican. So I told him that story, and he says, can you tell this story out there to the people? I said, we have 1,500 people out there at our library. It's a fundraiser, and it would be great if you could go up there and tell them that story. I said, no problem. A half an hour later, he announced me, he did a speech, and he says, I would like to have a friend of mine come out and say a few words to you. And he said, Arnold, why don't you come out? So I came out and I told this story. And he came to me afterwards and says, you got it. The way you spoke, that was unbelievable, he says. You should run for governor. And other people, George Bush Sr., when I was the chairman of the President's Council on Fitness, and I was in the White House a lot with him working, he said to me, he says, you know, you're very talented in this, and you're gifted in reaching out to people and making everyone feel inclusive, and you don't see anyone as the enemy, which is really good in politics. You want to bring people together. A lot of times people say things like that, but I always felt that I probably was not interested in getting into that fight because I didn't really like politics. I like policy. I like creating a policy to help people and to improve people's lives. There was a moment when there was a vacuum in California, and I really felt this is God saying to me, Arnold, this is your moment. If there's ever a call for you to be a public servant, this is it. I just felt like I should take on that challenge.
Did you ever at all regret that decision?
No, I was very happy. It was the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life.
It really makes sense to me that you being in politics, but at the same time, it doesn't make sense because when you do things, you like to get to the very top of the ladder, so to speak. But being in politics, you were not born in the States. You can never get to the top. So why bother being in the politics? That's something that I don't understand.
You know, when you get into politics, it's really not so much about yourself. This was the moment where I kind of turned that off, and I felt like I want to be a public servant. I want to serve the people of California and not to think about myself. So I didn't take a salary for 7 years. I didn't take anything. I paid for my own plane. I paid for my own travels. I paid for everything myself, and I just wanted to serve the people of California and to say thank you that I, as an immigrant, went to California with absolutely nothing. I made this fortune and made this career, created this beautiful family, all of that because of California. So I thought that's what I should do. Now, you're absolutely correct. My nature is to go all out and to go for the top job. And the next biggest thing would have been presidency. I would have loved running for president, but that was not available since the Constitution of the United States makes it very clear that you have to be born in the United States in order to run for president, and that was not.
Exactly. But during those 8 years as governor of the state of California, did you ever miss about being on the movie set?
Of course you missed that, but I mean, it's just such a great pleasure to be governor.
It's very challenging.
It's very challenging and it's very difficult, but I love big challenges. And I also love when people say it's impossible, because it's one of my rules to success is not to listen
to the naysayers.
Because all the time in my whole life I always have heard, oh, come on now, this is impossible. You can never become a star in Hollywood. You have an accent, you have a big body, you have a name that no one can pronounce. I mean, there were all kinds of excuses why people said it's impossible. The same was in bodybuilding. They said Austria is known for playing soccer and skiing, not to be bodybuilder. Forget it, it would never happen. So I heard this all the time. But remember what Nelson Mandela always said, that he said that everything seems to be impossible until someone does it. And so I said to myself, okay, I'm going to do it. And then I make it possible for everyone else.
You don't like losing at all?
I hate losing. But the important thing is when you lose and when you fall, don't stay down. Get up.
Tell me the hardest fall you've ever had.
I think that I remember to me the most emotional kind of fall was the first one, was when I came to America and I lost the Mr. Universe competition. I was here with absolutely nothing, no money, no nothing. I didn't know anybody, and I was competing in this contest, and somehow I lost. And I was devastated. I cried all night.
Oh, come on, really?
I cried all night. I remember I was 21 years old. I felt like, oh my God, I lost my home. I left, my home country. I came to America. The first thing I do over here is lose. I was so devastated. But then I got up and I dusted myself off. And I said to myself, this would never happen again. So I trained in America for 1 year straight. And the following year, I won that title, Mr. Universe contest. Beat all of the guys the same guy that beat me, beat him and beat everyone else. And then went to London, won within 1 week a second Mr. Universe contest of another federation, and I was back again. I learned from that loss. I learned that I was lazy for a little bit, that there was not no stone unturned. I missed out. I ate bad diet the week before when I was traveling. I was not as dedicated into training. I was not practicing on my posing and the moves and the whole thing. I just ran. I thought by having been the Mr. Universe that I'm just going to go to this competition and I'm just going to win. And this is not what happened. And so it was devastating. And so since then I've had many blow-ups like that. I mean, I remember I came out with a movie where we thought that movie is going to be highly successful, and the movie went right in the toilet. Didn't make any money, didn't open at all. The critics banned it and they just destroyed it and all this stuff. And then you just sit there totally depressed, and then you just have to pick yourself up. Because I always say that winners lose, but they always get back up again. Losers, when they lose, they stay down. Those are the losers. So I never wanted to be a loser. I wanted always to be a winner, even though I lose sometimes. And I fail sometimes. I'm a mission, so I've had personal failures, I've had business failures, I've had competition failures, movie failures, political failures, but I had to kind of pick myself up again and kind of like shake myself and say, okay, come on, let's get going. The vision is to work for California, not to worry about myself and about my feelings and all this stuff. And so that's what I did. My marriage is one of the failures. I can't blame anyone else. I think the only thing that really bothers me is death. You know, that's the only thing that really bothers me. The word retirement, that means you're giving up something, you're stopping something. Have you ever thought about what the point of that is? I mean, I don't know what the point of it is. Why would you give up something that you love doing?
What do you consider to be your biggest personal failure?
I think that my marriage is one of the failures. I totally screwed that up. I can't blame anyone else.
You said something, don't ever blame your parents. Do you think your children will ever blame you one time or?
You know, they could, but I mean, I tell you that my wife and I, we have had really the most wonderful relationship with our children. We always celebrate their birthdays together. We celebrate Mother's Day together. We celebrate Valentine's Day together. We celebrate Christmas together. I mean, or Easter, all of those holidays. And it's just wonderful when the whole family comes together. So this is the kind of relationship we have.
How long did it take for your kids to finally understand what happened and really just put things behind them, you know?
They, over the years, I think they have grown older, more mature. They are really wonderful kids. I mean, we are all very, very close. And I'm very proud of them, how well they've done in school, how well they're doing on their jobs, how well they're doing with their professions and all that stuff. And so is my wife. We always will be a family.
You know, 3 years ago, actually, I interviewed Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence here in Beijing. And then I'm very happy to hear about the marriage between your daughter
Chris Pratt is a fantastic guy.
Someday! Come on. Come on and find it. Hey.
I mean, he really is great. He's a sweetheart of a guy. He has been very good with Catherine, with my daughter. And he's a very dedicated actor. He takes his profession very seriously. He's right now shooting in Atlanta, and my daughter is there with him. So he's really great. We were very fortunate to have him come into our family.
Are you a very strict father?
According to my kids, I was very strict, yes. But not strict on a level of Austrian upbringing. No, not like that.
I mean, compared to your own childhood?
No, not even remotely, no. Because there was no physicality in our family. Whereas when I grew up, we were smacked all the time. We were hit all the time. We were kicked all the time. We were kind of spanked with branches and with belts and stuff like that. So there was all kinds of different punishment, yeah. So it was, the whole society was much more brutal. I think it also had to do with growing up after the Second World War. You know, everyone was physical, people were drunk, and they were obviously depressed because we lost the war. And so it was very, very tough. There was no food around when I was a little kid. My mother had to go begging to various different farms to find food. So we really grew up with absolutely nothing.
Were you close to your parents? Were you close to your father particularly?
Yeah, I think we were a close family. But it was a combination, toughness and discipline, but also at the same time, very sweetness and the kind of a love thing. Like, for instance, my father would be very affectionate with my mother. Mm-hmm. They would hold hands, they would kiss, they would hug, and all of those kind of things. So we saw this always. So I have that affectionate kind of behavior and feeling free with affection from my parents. But the next second they could be very tough and they smack you if you don't behave.
Do you still miss your brother?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you lose your brother with the age of 24, he was like a year older than me, and then I lost him in a car accident. He drove into a telegraph pole and got killed. That was a devastating blow. So, then you always kind of search for another brother, for someone that can replace that. Mm-hmm. And then that could be a training partner, like a friend of mine that just passed away by the name of Franco Colombo, kind of was like my brother. He became my best friend and kind of like a brother, and we just did everything together, working out together, traveling around the world together, competing together, playing chess together. We had the greatest time together.
Are you afraid of the age thing? Will be bothered by the age thing?
Not really. I think the only thing that really bothers me is death. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that really bothers me.
You showed the first hint of mortality a long time ago when you had your first heart surgery. That was the very hint.
You're absolutely right. That was 22 years ago, just before my 50th birthday. And since then, last year I had another open heart surgery.
Mm-hmm, I know that.
Just before the filming of Terminator. So then I really had to get my act together to get out of that hospital as quickly as possible and to get in shape so we don't have to stop the filming of Terminator. So I started training in the hospital.
Right after surgery, you started training in the hospital?
Well, I started walking. They said, okay, stay in bed for 3 days. I said, no. I said, guys, I have a movie to do. I don't have time for this stuff. So I got the walker, and then after the next day, I got up and I started walking around the hallway in the hospital and I started exercising. As a matter of fact, various different people, including my wife, came in and she said to me, she says, okay, today we're going to walk from here to there. And then she kind of pushed me. My kids came in and said, okay, now we're going to take another walk. And then my friends came in and said, now we take another walk. And this is how it went. And so I really got going with the program. And then as soon as I got out of the hospital, I started bicycling again. And then slowly with light weights, I still had, the scar here. And, they kind of open up your rib cage and then they wire it together with wires. So it's like you have to be very careful so you don't damage any of that. But I did it with supervision. 3 months later, I was on the set on Terminator and we were filming.
But were you afraid at all? I mean, before the surgery?
No, first of all, I did not know it's going to be this big of a surgery because I was supposed to go in there and to do what they call a non-invasive surgery. But it goes through your arteries up and they replace your valve. So then the next thing I know is I wake up 20 hours later and they say, oh, we're so sorry, but it didn't work out with what we had in mind. He says, so we had to kind of open up your chest. I said, are you kidding me? I couldn't even talk. I had this hose down my throat. I said, don't talk. So I had to wait for that to be taken out. And I was really, pissed off, I have to say. I was kind of upset. I said, I can't believe that. I come in here, they say you stay 1 night in the hospital, and then you go home, everything is going to be fine. The next thing I know is I have to stay now for 6 days in the hospital, and I had open heart surgery. Wow. So yeah, you do feel then vulnerable.
Yes.
You do feel things change after something, after a dramatic event like that. But that's okay, I've had so many wonderful surprises that you have to be also ready for those terrible surprises.
So how often do you work out nowadays?
I still train every day. Like this morning we worked out. Yes, I work out all the time. Not much. 45 minutes a day with weights, and then I go bicycling and do some cardiovascular training and all that stuff, just because it's the old saying with the body, use it or lose it.
Oh, wow.
And so we have to use it.
So give us some tips on how to, lose our body fat or be in better shape, just generally speaking.
I don't want to be a perfect example for losing body fat because I've put on some body fat lately, traveling around, even though I exercise regularly. But the key thing is that we don't eat, especially when you get older, you don't eat as much meat, which is something that Jim Cameron, the director, kind of talked me into. He's a fanatic vegan.
Really?
Oh yeah, he writes books on it. And so I'm 70% of meat products. I also, at night, I don't eat much. I eat like a soup, a vegetable soup, or stuff like that, which is always helpful, not to eat much at night.
So you have a very strict diet all these
not
years?
Not that strict, I go to Austria and then I eat my Sachertorte, and I go sometimes, my kids bring over to the house cartons of ice cream, then I eat with them ice cream, or we cook a Wiener Schnitzel, which is of course meat, and then we do it. So it's not as strict, but it's just, you got to be conscious of it, that eating right and exercising regularly is very important.
But will you ever put this extra maybe 50 pounds for a movie role? Will you ever do that?
Today you can just put some puffed kind of clothes on to look like you gained 50 pounds. And if I have to lose 50 pounds, I could lose 50 pounds for a movie. The great thing is when there's a specific purpose, then you can really lock into that and you can do anything.
I know you will never retire from movie business. Where do you see yourself in like 10 years, 15 years?
If you really analyze the word retirement, that means you're giving up something, you're stopping something. And have you ever thought about what the point of that is? I mean, I don't know what the point of it is. Why would you give up something that you love doing? That's what we were born for, to be useful. And therefore, you got to do something. You maybe don't have the show because things change all the time. I may not be the superstar and all that stuff, but you all still can go out there and help people in some capacity, or run some foundation that helps people. You can be out there and be a environmental crusader and travel around China or around the world and talk about that subject. But you don't have to retire and say, this is the end now, I'm going to give up working and all that stuff. That's bogus, because people usually when they retire, they wipe out. Because the mission is over and the brain gives out and the body gives out. So I think we always need to challenge ourselves. And remember, there's nothing that's better for your brain than to be always thinking and to kind of challenge yourself. If it's playing chess, or if it's reading books, or if it is, kind of having interesting debates. The job that you do with your show, you keep yourself really stimulated, because as I can see when I sit here with you, you've done a lot of extensive research.
I've read your book. So it's very entertaining.
Thank you. So that is, so every time you have a guest, you have to then read about them, you have to do research about them. So that gets your brain cells working all the time. So it's a great exercise. We got to exercise, as I said, use it or lose it. If you don't use your brain, you're going to lose it. And if you don't use your body, you're going to lose it.
You're a very good motivational speaker.
Thank you.
Good luck with this movie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a great time talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.